Students, in this tutorial, we're going to talk about sex determination. It was Henking in the year 1891 who traced the presence of a specific nuclear structure that he called X body. He observed it during spermatogenesis or sperm production in some insects. So he noticed that when sperms were being produced in some insects, 50% of the sperms receive this nuclear structure termed as X body, while the rest of the 50% did not receive this X body structure. So, as I told you before, he has called this structure as the X body. And he noticed that 50% sperms receive the X body, 50% of the sperms produced during the process did not receive the X body. Later on, there were many other scientists who investigated, and on further investigation, they found that this X body was really actually the X chromosome. So it was termed as the X chromosome. So the nuclear structure that Henking was talking about, that 50% of the sperms receive, is the X chromosome. So sex is determined by these sex chromosomes called as X chromosomes, and in some cases Y chromosomes. Now, in our topic, we have to study different types of sex determination. So, we have three types that we need to study. The first type is the XO type. In some books, you may come across it as the XXXO type. It is one and the same thing. Okay, so XO type of sex determination is seen in a large number of insects. And let's take one specific example. Grasshopper, which is an insect, has this specific type of XO type of sex determination. Now, if you take a look at grasshopper, you will find that it contains 12 pairs of chromosomes. So 12 pairs of chromosomes works out to 24 chromosomes. That is a female grasshopper. So if you literally count the number of chromosomes in a female grasshopper, it is around 24 chromosomes. Whereas a male has only 23 chromosomes. Why? Now, this happens because in the females, they produce the gamete that we know as the egg. And the egg contains an X chromosome along with autosomes. Whereas the males produce the sperms. Now, the males are capable of producing two types of sperms. The sperms that bear the X chromosome, that means they have the X chromosome, and they can produce sperms which do not have the X chromosome. So during spermatogenesis, 50% of the sperms produced will contain this X chromosome, and 50% do not have or contain the X chromosome. Whereas I said the eggs will always contain the X chromosome. So all 100% eggs which are produced will have the X chromosome. Now, what are the chances of the offspring being a male or a female? If the egg, which contains your X chromosome, fuses or fertilizes with a sperm that has an X chromosome, that means you're getting an X from the egg and you're getting an X from the sperm, the individual offspring that is produced will be a female, because you will get 22 plus X coming from the mother, X coming from the father. And we said that a female has 24 chromosomes. Whereas if an egg fertilizes a sperm or it fuses with a sperm which does not contain the X chromosome, then that individual offspring will turn out to be a male, because you are getting 22 autosomes plus X coming from the egg, but you are not receiving any chromosome from the sperm. This sperm is without an X chromosome. Okay, so what you have to understand here is that the female, okay, is XX, female produces only one type of gamete, whereas a male is capable of producing two types of sperms or two types of gametes, the ones which have the sex chromosome and those which do not. So, this is an example of male heterogamety, meaning males produce two types of gametes. Now let us look at the other example. So the other example or the other type that we have to study is the XY type of sex determination. This is also found in certain insects, and most of the mammals have the XY type of sex determination. So we'll take an example, say, of an insect such as Drosophila. So Drosophila has an XY type of sex determination method, and mammals like human beings also have the XY type of sex determination. So in this type, how is it different from the XO type? Here is our first difference. In this type, both male and female have the same number of chromosomes, whereas in the previous exotype, we said that the females will have 24, whereas males have one less chromosome because it has one less sex chromosome. Okay, so here, first point to remember is that both males and females have the same number of chromosomes. Females have autosomes and a pair of X chromosomes. So, if you take the case of a human female, you will have 22 pairs of autosomes and a pair of sex chromosomes XX. And we all know that humans have 46 chromosomes because it's 22 pairs plus X and X, whereas a male has autosomes and one large X chromosome and one small Y chromosome. So you can see here the male will have an X chromosome and a different sex chromosome called as the Y chromosome. So if you take human males, you have 22 pairs of autosomes plus an X sex chromosome and a Y sex chromosome. So if you take the total, it is 46 only, but here it is 22 pairs of autosomes and an X chromosome and a Y sex chromosome. So this again is an example of male heterogamety. Why? Because the males can produce two types of uh, sperms. Okay, like in case of human males, when spermatogenesis takes place, you have 50% of the sperms bearing X and 50% bearing Y chromosome. So every child that is conceived, okay, can has a 50% probability of being either a male or a female depending on which sperm fuses with the X egg. So if it is a Y sperm fusing with the X egg, then the child born will be a male, and if it is the X egg and X sperm fusing, then the child born is a female. So please remember that sex is determined in a human offspring or a human child by the father and not by the mother, because in India we have this taboo, especially in rural areas, where the mother is blamed for the birth of a girl child. Okay, and this has been going on for very long. But actually, it a mother has got nothing to do with it. It is the father who will determine the sex of the child, because it is the sperm that either bears a X or a Y that will determine the fate of the sex of the child. Okay, so that is to be kept in mind. So this again is an example of male heterogamety. So two examples of male heterogamety you have to study: the XO and the XY. Coming to the third type, and this is a classic example of female heterogamety. Okay, because here in case of birds, sex determination in birds, the female bird produces two types of sex chromosomes, or it has two types of sex chromosomes, the Z and the W. Okay, whereas so the female egg, the female gamete, the egg of the bird will either bear a Z or a W chromosome, whereas male birds will produce sperms which have only Z chromosome. Okay, so therefore, male birds finally will end up having ZZ, whereas a female bird will have its autosomes and ZW. So, this, please note, is an example of female heterogamety because the female is producing two different types of gametes. But the above two examples were examples of male heterogamety. Okay, so this is what is to be remembered in sex determination. Clear?